If you're looking for actionable career advice for the sports industry, this is the place for you. Hey everybody, I'm Brian Clapp. I am the host of the Work in Sports podcast, and I've been working in the sports industry for the last 20 years. A lot of my experiences in the broadcast media, CNN, Sports Illustrated, Fox Sports, Northwest, but I've been at Work in Sports for the last 7 years. And the whole point of this YouTube channel is to give you actionable career advice, things you can actually put to work today. That's a big word for me. I like actionable advice. I'm not into the theoretical stuff. I'm not into the, fluffery or puffery. I really like to give you actual things you can do. So if you're coming here, that's what you can expect out of me. We're going to continue to do this YouTube series. We have our Work in Sports podcast, which I hope all of you are subscribers to, where I interview a lot of people in the sports industry about their careers, how they got where they are, what they've learned along the way. It's great. It's so cool. I love doing it. I also do a Monday podcast where I answer fan questions, which of course you can be involved in as well. But I wanted to add this YouTube channel to give more of a visual component to it all and just really get into some of these actionable tactics in a different way. So let's start with this premise. Let's start at the beginning. So many people in our audience are sports fans, and they think to themselves, I love sports. This is something that totally does it for me. I should make this into a career, which totally makes sense because let's be honest, working in sports, at least to me, I'm biased, I get it, is a lot cooler than working in a cubicle each day. Now, again, there's some jobs that are in sports or in a cubicle as well, but you get this really cool envelope of being able to go to games and see cool things and be around athletes and all this other fun stuff. So why not pursue that if you've identified that as your passion? But here's the deal. It can be confusing. Because the sports industry is just that. It's an industry. It's not a job itself. You can't just say, I want to work in sports. You have to be more specific. You have to figure out what that means for you. And if you really look at the industry, it's a big business. And what I mean by that is there are jobs in finance and HR. There are jobs in sales and marketing and operations. There are a lot of jobs that you'd find anywhere in any industry. So having a good business knowledge can really affect that. Sports just puts a really cool wrapper on it, right? But there are certain roles in sports that are different, right? They're a little different than you'd see in any other industry. Coaches, scouting, player development. Some of those things are very sports specific. You don't see Microsoft having a coach or a scout, I don't think. Maybe they do. I have no idea. But it's not the same as what we see in the sports industry. But our goal in this and in this conversation isn't just to say, yay, working in sports is fun. It's to say, how do you find your fit in the industry? How do you figure out what it is that's going to work for you and make you feel, satisfied and enthused and excited about going to work? I've loved my career. I've enjoyed every step of it. I continue to enjoy everything I do in the sports industry, and I want you to find that as well. I keep thinking about, and part of the reason I wanted to have this conversation is I keep thinking about one of our most recent podcast episodes. I interviewed Allison Bickford, who's the director of corporate partnership activation with the Seattle Kraken. And yes, fans of the show know that I just like to say the Seattle Kraken, and Allison said that she was going to send me a t-shirt, so I'm very excited. Okay, but Allison said something that really stood out to me. We were talking about how working in the sports industry changes you in a lot of ways. Like you see things differently and you identify things that you wouldn't normally if you were just watching as a fan. And she said, and she works in corporate partnership activation, and we can talk about what that means at some other time. But really what she was saying is I watch games now and I'm staring at the dasher boards at the hockey game and I'm noticing what other corporate partners there are. And I'm noticing this, that, and the other thing. And I kept thinking is that what that means is she found something that not only she enjoys doing, but like it's in her. Like she thinks about it. She wants to get better at it. She notices these things out there. Isn't that what we're all looking for out of our career? Like that thing that kind of motivates us to go a little bit deeper or know a little bit more and to be really engaged with what we're doing. You don't want to just go through the motions. You don't want to just have a career. You want to do something you feel good about. So that's the big question. Well, I love sports. I get this all the time. I love sports. I know everything about sports. I'm a really big fan. I love this team. I love that team. What should I do with my career? That's not something I can answer or anybody else. That's a self-discovery thing. But let's talk about how that can happen. What I mean by that is, let's go back a little bit. I'll tell you a little bit of my backstory really quick. I won't bore you with it. But I started out in college and I was a biology and chemistry double major thinking I wanted to go become a physical therapist. And after my first 2 years, I was like, yeah, this ain't it for me. And I had to figure out what that was. And my mom said to me, she's like, look, you watch sports when you don't have to. It's not a job to you. It's just something you want to do all the time. You watch ESPN, you wait for headline news to have sports updates. You always are reading the newspaper and reading everything going on in sports. Figure out something there. And that was like where the light bulb went on, like, oh yeah, I guess I could do that, right? But I had to go through that process of discovery. And then it was figuring out where that fit was. And for me, I got a little bit lucky. I just said, hey, I love ESPN. I love storytelling. I love the long form. I love the highlights. I love the everything. Why don't I aim for that? And so I started focusing in that direction and ended up getting hired and starting my career that way. That's how I discovered my fit. It doesn't always work that way for everybody. So let's get to the actionable advice. Let's get to the part where you can start putting this to work. We have on our job board right now at workinsports.com 22,967 active jobs. That's a lot of opportunity. And just to put it in perspective, right around when coronavirus started really being a big thing last year, we dropped down to about 7,000, right? That was one of our lowest ever in the history of our company. The industry just wasn't that active. Makes sense. We don't need to get into that here. We don't need to relive all of that. But what's happened since is that we've started to rebound. And you hear that number, 22,967. You're like, whoa, that sounds like a lot. How am I ever going to figure out where my thing is? That sounds kind of like boiling the ocean, right? It's like I'm going to put all this effort into looking through all these jobs and I'm never going to really figure out what it is. Because there are, as I started to say, jobs in sales, jobs as a trainer, jobs in marketing, operations, being a GM, front office, scouts, everything, right? Media relations, public relations. There's so many things you can be doing in the sports industry. It can feel like a lot. So how do we boil it down to a more manageable number? Well, what I find most people do on a job board like ours is they go in and they start looking for terms that they can identify with, like marketing. I'll look at some marketing jobs, see if that's what does it for me. Or I'll take a sales class in school, or I'll take a marketing class or an operations class or an economics class, and I'll try these things out. And that's fine. That is a methodology that's been tried and true and a lot of people have done over the years. What I would suggest, though, is let's take that 22,967 number and narrow it down a little bit, but not by job vertical. Let's do it by terms that are used for entry-level jobs. If you're starting out and you're trying to find your fit, you're trying to find that glimmer of something that sounds interesting to you. You're trying to find that thing that makes you feel passionate and excited, like, whoa, that's super cool. Now, I've been in the industry for 20 years and I look through our job board and I'll look at jobs sometimes and be like, that sounds really cool. And it's a little late for me to start over. But again, there's a lot of cool stuff out there. You have to go through these processes of discovery. So what do? You go on a site like ours, workinsports.com, and instead of searching for a keyword like social media or operations, you search for a term that is associated with entry-level jobs. And I'm talking about coordinator, a word like coordinator. If you search for coordinator on our job board right now, you'll narrow our list down to 1,126 jobs. And that's still pretty large, but what that tells you is those are more entry-level roles. And you're going to get a cross-section of all the available opportunities out there. Social media coordinator, I'm looking right now. Social media coordinator, operations coordinator, marketing coordinator, sales operations coordinator, partnership activation coordinator. These are various entry-level jobs across the line of sports. Hiring at teams, hiring at agencies, hiring at organizations, nonprofits, whatever, all different types of opportunities. We work with 8,000 employers. So like we're really spanning all of it out there. Media companies, whatever, okay? Athletic department, college athletic departments. But if you search for that term coordinator, you're going to see a lot of different entry-level jobs, and you can start to read through those job descriptions. Now, I know it sounds boring to read through job descriptions, but if you start to go through and you're like, operations coordinator, I wonder what they do. And you see an operations coordinator for a G League basketball team or something like that, and you start to read through it and you're like, that sounds kind of cool. Well, then start to lean in a little deeper. Start to search for more jobs in operations. Start to search for more jobs in that field. And you can start to see, like, does this feel like something that's a match for me? Take some notes on it. Write it down. Start to give yourself a little bit of a background on what some of these things do. It's discovery. It's research. This sort of stuff really matters in your overall process. So now I'll give you some other terms too, and you can choose to use these as you see fit. But specialist is another really good one. I looked at that just a second ago, and I saw email marketing specialist. I see all different types of social media specialist. It's a good term for an entry-level job. Associate is another one. Assistant is another one. But I want to get back to partnership activation coordinator real quick, okay? Partnership activation coordinator. I interviewed Chelsea Zahn, who is the partnership activation coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, about a year ago probably. And I talked to her about this, and she was like, I didn't even know that was when I was in college. I had no idea what a partnership activation coordinator was. And I laughed, and I was like, I don't know what it is now, so why don't you explain it to me? But my point in this and bringing this up is like, unless you get out there and see what those opportunities are in an entry-level kind of form and fashion, you're never going to know what could happen for you in the sports industry. You're never going to know what options open up when you know about them, so you can go after something. But what I'd really like to, you get this focus and you lean in deeper, but what I'd really like to focus on is next level advice. Here's what I mean. Always about actionable advice. I want you to do these searches. I want you to figure out those things, and I want you to put in the effort of looking through them because, again, I can't tell you what you should be doing for your life. I don't know what you're interested in. I don't know what you're passionate about. I don't know what excites you. But if you start to put in the work and you start to identify an area that sounds interesting to you, oh man, partnership activation sounds really cool, or marketing or operations or whatever it may be, right? You started to identify this area sounds cool. Now you need to go next level, right? You got to raise your game. And here's what I mean. Now go find 10 jobs in that discipline. So I'll use marketing as an example, just because it's probably easier, right? Lots of marketing jobs out there, lots of sports marketing jobs. But if you say to yourself, sports marketing sounds super cool. I see this job for a marketing coordinator. I'm interested. This is what I want to lean into right now. This is what I think my focus may be. Now go find 10 jobs across the country, anywhere. Now you're doing a search for marketing coordinator. Go find 10 of them. Every job you find is going to be a little bit different because every organization has a different needs and demands of what they expect out of a marketing coordinator. But these are entry-level jobs. Now is where you're doing the next level research. Go through these 10 jobs that you pulled up. Again, you're not applying to them. You're looking at them and researching and understanding what the market needs. Get these 10 jobs, okay? Read through the job descriptions and pull out the skills that they're saying they want. One job may say, I want somebody with Photoshop experience. I want somebody that knows CRMs. I want somebody that has done email marketing, and I want somebody that's done blah, 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 whatever. I'm just throwing things out here, right? Another one says 5 other skills. Another one says 3 different skills. Line all these things up on a spreadsheet. Line up all the skills. What you are now identifying are the handful of 15 to 20 skills that are in demand for an entry-level person in sports marketing. That is now your game plan. Identify those skills, and in the next column over on your spreadsheet, write down a number from 1 to 10 of where your comfort level is, or 1 to 3. I don't care. Make it up your own system, right? I do 1 to 10. You might do 1 to 3, whatever. Your goal is to identify the gaps in your knowledge that don't line up with what the industry needs. The industry is telling you, if I'm hiring a marketing coordinator right now, no matter where I am in the country, these are the skills I want them to have. It's an open book test. They're telling you the answers. Your job now is to say, okay, I've identified what I need. I know what's in demand. Now I'm going to go get those skills and make sure I have them. Some of you may already have, but you want to build that up so that by the time you hit the marketplace and you have determined you want to be in marketing, you have the skills that will make you stand out for jobs. So this is the 2-level technique. Start out with wide, looking at those search terms, coordinator, specialist, associate, assistant. Start to narrow down your list. Look through options out there. Consider some things. Picture yourself in them. Visualize what it would be like. Oh, I want to work on game night and stuff. Okay, maybe operations is a good match for you. I really like being on the phone and I'm relational and I'm reading this and sales sounds really cool to me. Okay. Oh, I'm super creative. I like to design. I like to build campaigns and I like to push out these ideas. Okay, marketing. Right? You start to read more and these answers are going to become very clear to you. Once you identify, then you have to maximize. And that's where that study of what's in demand for the marketplace comes in. Understand what skills are in demand, put a plan together to learn them. And then when you hit the marketplace to start applying for jobs, you will be a standout applicant. It really is that simple. And I'm telling you right now, because I speak in colleges all across the country, not enough people are doing this. Not enough people are being intentional and learning in this fashion and discovering themselves and the marketplace. They're taking their courses, they're doing their internships, they're checking the boxes and thinking, all right, come to me now, give me jobs. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to be more active and more intentional in this process. And if you do these steps, you will stand out in your sports career. And I'm not even kidding. This is the bottom line. This is how it's going to work for you. So do that. And then come back and tell me in the comments what you've discovered. I want you to share with me like, wow, I did this research and I started to really understand this is the area that sounds interesting to me. And I will gladly interact with you. I will gladly give you some advice. I will gladly tell you more about that career path. But I want you to put in the work first to understand a little bit more about what works for you. And then we can start to have a more in-depth conversation. So subscribe to this channel, get in those comments and start telling us more about what you're discovering about yourself and your career in the sports industry and the ways you want to focus. And then let's start to have a conversation. But you got to put in the work too. It's not just me here.